Today we're going to discuss about different types of ego defense mechanisms. Uh, this is mostly when you think about Freud and id, ego, and superego, um, you will have a basic concept of what ego means, and then you want to build upon with the defense mechanisms. So, what are defense mechanisms? These are unconscious strategies used by ego or self to protect against anxiety or distress. Now, let's say that there is a stressful event or an emotional conflict or distressing thought in the brain that creates anxiety, guilt, and discomfort. Now, your psychological framework, the ego, responds by using defense mechanisms to manage emotions. Now, each person or each situation is different, so you're going to grow through different kind of stresses, different kind of situations. So, and each person's moral framework or their experiences in life is different. So they're going to come up with different defense mechanisms. So you want to have an idea of like what is when you're interacting with, like, let's say a family member or a patient or anybody, you can understand like what kind of defense mechanism may be playing a role in that conversation or that situation. Let's look at some of them. So there are different kinds. One is mature differences, means somebody who has a better framework internally to resolve conflicts or address stress. Somebody who has neurotic defenses means like their framework is not that strong, so they react differently. Now, somebody who's immature, they will react differently. So let's look at some mature defense mechanism, which is healthy coping. Means like when you see these people, when they go through stress or conflicts, they react in a very positive defense mechanism or a mature defense mechanism. So let's look at sublimation, which means that channeling emotions into positive actions. Okay, they're positively modulating the situation or thoughts or emotions. A person dealing with anger takes up kickboxing instead of lashing out. Humor, using jokes to cope with distress. Patient laughs about a difficult diagnosis to ease tension. So a lot of times, like you see somebody has sense of humor or somebody who is able to use humor in a stressful situation to de-stress, then that's a very mature defense mechanism. Okay. Now let's say suppression. This is you're consciously, means like you're aware of it, you're postponing the emotional reaction. So what it means is that you're upset about something, but it's not a right situation to show your emotion, so you're suppressing that emotion. Example would be a student who is anxious about an exam, decides to stay calm and study first and worrying later. So that's suppression. That's a mature defense mechanism. Let's go to neurotic defense mechanism, which is like a moderate kind of coping. Repression, like unconsciously blocking distressing thoughts. It's not a conscious effort. If you look at like the mature defense mechanism, there is a consciously doing this. So you're aware and you're putting it into practice. In neurotic, you're not aware, but you're blocking distressing thoughts. A victim of childhood trauma cannot recall specific details of the event. Next one, reaction formation. Behaving the opposite of true feelings. That means a person who dislikes a coworker acts overtly nice to them. You may see many times these things. So reaction formation, it could be tested in the exam. Displacement, reacting emotions to a safer target. A man frustrated with his boss yells at his spouse at home. So these are neurotic defense mechanisms. Now, immature defense mechanisms, projection, attributing personal feelings to others. A cheating spouse accuses their partner of being unfaithful. That is projecting. So you're doing something, you're feeling something, but you're projecting onto somebody else. Now, denial, that is refusing to accept reality. A smoker insists smoking isn't harmful despite medical evidence. Somebody who's going through grieving loss or something also, or has a loss also, they go through denial. Regression, this is reverting to childlike behaviors. A stressed adult starts sucking their thumb or throwing tantrums. Those are immature defense mechanisms. Now, there are pathological dependence, means that like shows severe dysfunction. In this delusional projection, experiencing paranoia and hallucination. A person, example would be a person convinced that others are plotting against them with no evidence. This is not in the psychotic spectrum, but you'll see it is in defense mechanism. Splitting, seeing people commonly as good or bad. A patient with borderline personality disorders idolizes the therapist one day and devalues them next day. So when you have mature defense mechanism, you have emotional resilience and effective coping. When you have unhealthy defense, you have anxiety, depression, maladaptive behavior. So the goal is to recognize and shift towards a mature coping strategy. Hope that gives you clarity. Take care. Thank you.